Welcome to Season 2 of the Empower to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dina Tipsherini, and I'm so excited to take you on a journey through the ups and downs of motherhood. Together, we are going to learn, prepare for, and unearth all things motherhood, because I believe that exposure and awareness can lead to empowerment. So buckle up for an unfiltered, raw, and insightful journey. Hello, and welcome back to the Empower to Heal podcast, Season 2, where we are talking about all things motherhood. Today is a really special day because I have a guest on the show today who's coming not only with personal experiences that are real, raw, insightful, something that can support you in feeling connected, but also amazing professional experiences in this world of not only mental health, but spirituality and culture and connection and community. She ties everything together. And so I'm super excited to have her on the show today. I'm going to read her bio so you know all the amazing things that made me geek out when I read it. But Ayla, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited you're here.
I'm really excited, Dina. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Ayla is a licensed clinical social worker with a second master's degree in women and gender studies. That's amazing. She holds certifications in compassionate bereavement care, registered trauma-informed yoga, prenatal yoga instruction, and Ayla is also a TRE, which is trauma, tension, and stress relief provider, utilizing this method to help individuals release deep tension held in muscles and tissues due to trauma and daily stress. Additionally, Ayla is a shamanic practitioner, which I just got so giddy when I learned this about her because I didn't know this at first. So Ayla specializes in grief, trauma, mindfulness, domestic violence, and abuse, and she has over 8 years of experience in the social work field. She's worked in substance abuse, mental health, domestic violence, refugee resettlement, providing valuable services to families and individuals. And she's currently serving as a program manager. She has a comprehensive understanding of the entire field of social work. And in addition to these qualifications that I just mentioned, Ayla is trained in EMDR and has experience with equine assisted therapy modalities. Her expertise also extends to structural dissociation theory and complex trauma processing. I geeked out hearing your bio because throughout my lifetime, I have been interested in taking classes in trauma-informed yoga, prenatal yoga, TRE. I have worked in domestic violence shelters. I'm a therapist in the mental health field. And I originally set out to be a therapist to do equine assisted therapy. So I'm like, oh my
I didn't know that.
gosh, we align. I know. We
They're like
align.
twins.
Yeah, except you pursued a lot of these things where I only pursued some of them. Like I pursued the trauma-informed yoga for children and obviously therapy, but I didn't pursue the equine-assisted therapy. I've experienced TRE and the magical benefits of it for myself. And I've experienced shamanic work, which am grateful for having that experience in my life. And so I just feel like the universe brought us together, and I'm so happy you're here today. Motherhood is a beautiful journey, but it can also be overwhelming. Do you often find yourself feeling isolated, struggling to find balance, and yearning for a sense of identity beyond mom? Trust me, you're not alone. Join the Empowered Mamas Club, where you'll discover a supportive community of like-minded mothers. Gain valuable skills to navigate those highs and lows of motherhood, reclaim your sense of self, and become the engaged and present mom that you desire so that you can create cherished moments with your little ones. It's time to prioritize your well-being and rediscover the joy in motherhood. Click the link in the show notes and join us in the Empowered Mamas Club today.
Well, thank you, Dina. And there's still time, right?
Yeah.
You can still, I will hook you up. You can still do those things.
Yeah, girl. Thank you. Okay, so we are recording this in the month of May, and the month of May is Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month. And either yesterday or the day before, time eludes me, it was Postpartum Psychosis Awareness Day, which is a day entirely committed to educating and increasing awareness on postpartum psychosis, which is probably the most under talked about and educated piece of maternal mental health ever. I think there's this taboo, this hush hush around it. People are afraid to talk about it. And the reality is we need to raise awareness around this for safety because postpartum psychosis can be considered and often is considered a medical emergency. Your brain can play tricks on you. And when I first met Ayla, she was in her postpartum season, and we actually met at a fourth trimester village. It was such an honor. And as I heard her speak and share, I immediately knew I wanted to learn from her. And then a year passed, and she showed up in my life again right after I was searching for her contact information. And the universe was like, "You have something to learn from Ayla. Here she is." So I'm really, really grateful to have you here to speak and shed light on postpartum psychosis and just the postpartum experiences in your own mental health journey, as well as the unique and powerful ways that you've learned to heal through this. Because society tells us there's talk therapy and there's medication management, and those are our options to support healing with maternal mental health. But the reality is those are just two options, two powerful options that I believe in, but they're only two of many options. And you have explored and experienced so many alternatives that you can speak to the power and the benefit of. And so I am excited to hear your story. I'm excited to hear how you've become this woman that you are today, your postpartum journey, your healing journey, your insight into alternative integrative modalities, and all of the things.
Yeah. Oh man, I think the first part, right, is to talk about my own experience with it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, gosh, so where do you even start with something like that? Because I feel like just talking about like the birth experience and then like what happened after birth is just still so limiting. So
Mm,
so Elena is a rainbow baby after multiple miscarriages.
okay.
And so her and I, well, and my husband, right? So we went through a fertility journey in order to have her. And so
Mhm.
already I was having post-traumatic stress responses because I kept thinking I was losing the baby every day almost,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
that was already stored in my body. And then in my last trimester, um, I ended up getting COVID and then got cholestasis. And so I was supposed
What
to have.
is cholestasis?
Oh, yeah. So cholestasis is where the liver starts to attack the baby in a way. So, like,
Mm.
the physical symptoms are like really itchy palms and feet, and it's uncontrollable. It is like a constant itch. There is no
Wow.
relief. And when I talked to my doctor about this, I was like, "Hey, so I don't know if there's anything. You already know I have COVID. That's why we're meeting online. But like, I'm really itchy too, and I don't know why." And she's like, "You have to come in." And I was like, "Oh." She's like, "We have to do blood work." But the blood work takes a week to get
Wow.
back to you. And so this entire time, my liver was attacking Elena. And apparently, from that, like, there's like a good percent chance like they could be born stillborn.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so then this beautiful home birth that I had paid for and that I had prayed for and was prepared for, they told me I had to be transferred to the hospital, and that was
How
already
many
grieving, right?
weeks were you at this point?
At that point, I think I was 36 weeks, or I was just
Okay.
about to start 36 weeks.
Okay.
And because she was definitely born at like maybe 37 and a half, I
Okay.
think. So I spent 9 days in the hospital,
Oh
and it
my
was
gosh.
yeah, it was a terrible experience. Um, one of the so Rootwood Rise Collective, right? They're amazing. They're fantastic. And that's who I was gonna do my home birth with, was Aurora Midwifery. And you know, they were just like, here is Melissa. She ended up just being my birthing doula. And, like the whole goal is I personally wanted to have like a vaginal birth. And so I was pumped full of Pitocin. I was told to do things without like I did not give permission for in terms of treatment, but they forced me into this type of treatment with the extra Pitocin, with activating my cervix without my permission,
Mm.
and all kinds of stuff. So my body was already undergoing stress on top of COVID, on top of having cholestasis. And so Melissa came because I called her and I was like, I need you. I know you said call when I need you, and I really need you. I feel like I'm having a mental breakdown because my body is just going through so much. And she came and she was like, Ayla, you're tired now. Think of how tired you're gonna be when the baby comes, right? You have to gain some sort of strength somehow. I think it might be time for a C-section,
Mm.
right? And that's not something you would expect from someone who was active in like home birth. Yeah, that's great, right? And they went along with what I wanted. And so for her to have told me that, like I knew she was right,
Mm.
like it's not like they just go all around willy-nilly saying something like that.
Yeah.
And so I knew she was right. And so I called the doctor in and I was like, okay, I'm ready for the C-section. And this was day 6, right, of waiting. Um, and so we had the C-section and it was rushed. It was like an emergency C-section. Everybody was just really ready, and it seemed like it was just getting more dangerous. So I had the C-section, and I mean, she had to go to NICU within those first 24 hours. So like that was another trauma on top of the
Yeah.
birthing experience.
Mhm.
And so the reason I tell the whole story from like fertility to here, right, is because I feel like this all somehow contributed to the psychosis I
Yes.
ended up developing.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't, I feel like it might have been immediate. Maybe when we got out of the hospital, right? Because Elena was in NICU for 24 hours. I did get to hold her. I got to interact with her as soon as she came out. Like I got to interact in some way. But I don't think I really started recognizing what was happening in my brain with like the induced anxiety and the paranoia until I got home, which was 3 days later.
Right.
Um, and and I thought I was going crazy. People were telling me things, but my brain couldn't I thought I heard what was being said. And when I said it out loud, people were telling me that that was never said. Right. I thought I
Mm.
was getting information from people about feeding, for example, like this is the time. And so I started writing it out, and Muhammad was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm writing out the time." And he said, "You're not writing out time." I wasn't even writing out time. I had
Mm.
a board in front of me and I started writing, but I wasn't even writing time. Like I was starting to write words. So like
Mm.
things weren't clicking.
Yeah.
So he wrote out the chart for me of like feeding times of like what the doctor was saying because I was not understanding anything anybody was telling me.
And this
So that
has
was like,
started at 3 days postpartum.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so and that was when I was home, and because I didn't notice anything in the hospital, um, except for like a lot of anxiety and worry about Elena being in the hospital
Yeah.
or in NICU. And so then all of a sudden I mean, there was increased anxiety, there was a lot of paranoia, a lot of intrusive thoughts. But then I think maybe a couple weeks into it, I started seeing things that just weren't there. And they started out as shadows and like things I just couldn't get away from. Like there's a clear shadow here of a shape of a person, right? So I would get scared pretty frequently. But also I was a clinician. I am a clinician at this time. And I was like, all right, I'm sleep deprived. I
Hmm.
haven't been nourishing my body very well. I'm makes sense that I'm seeing things. But then it got worse.
Mm.
And then I started seeing someone break into my home and kill my husband and then go try and murder my daughter.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't an intrusive thought. It was, I was doing dishes and I heard someone break in through the door and I was scared and terrified. So I was paralyzed there. And I saw on the baby monitor somebody try and kill my husband and was successful. And I ran to the other, because there was another baby monitor hooked up to Elena's room, and I ran to her to see the man trying to kill my daughter, and I could hear it. So while I was fighting it, there was nothing there,
How
right?
did you discover this wasn't real? Like, how, at
When
what
nothing
point?
was there, when I was punching and fighting and nothing was there.
Oh,
And I ended up having to sit in the rocking chair to hear and witness all of these things happening. Because as soon as I was hitting and punching and nothing was there, I knew that
it was
I was
real.
having hallucinations. And I knew that I needed to sit down and it had to happen. Because,
Wow.
yeah. And the only way I was able to do that was because I was a clinician and I knew what hallucinations meant. My brain was trying to survive something, and this was the only message it could give me because my brain wasn't able to comprehend anything else. And it was telling me that I am terrified and I am anxious and I'm feeling all these things. But my brain at that time couldn't just explain those things to me like normal people could. Like it was, I need to show you and this is the message for you.
Mm.
And
My
so it's just like
gosh.
that.
And how long did this last for? Because this just wasn't a one-time experience, right?
It did. It lasted for, gosh, 6 months.
Oh my gosh, my dear.
Yeah.
So, as I hear this, also as a clinician, like,
Yeah.
and I think of the people listening to this or watching this episode, if you experience and you start realizing what you are hearing, seeing, feeling isn't there, that's considered a medical emergency when you have a child. And in that moment, because you're not a clinician, and if you are a clinician, that's time to reach out for help, right?
Hmm.
Because your brain, you just painted a picture of how powerful our brain is. Our brain is so powerful. We can be 100% convinced that something is happening, and in our response to that belief, that those hallucinations, we can do dangerous things trying to protect, right? It can end up being dangerous. And so that's where reaching out for help and getting support matters. And medication management can be very powerful for this. And so I know, I'm curious, what did it look like when you reached out for help? What did you do to support you through this?
Yeah. There was a lot of shame and guilt in
Yeah.
that experience, and I couldn't explain it very well. I tried explaining it to my husband and I tried explaining it to my mother, and but I wasn't explaining it well. And I was, granted, I was too ashamed to say the things that I was seeing.
Yeah.
So I was only honest about it with another therapist who's also one of my best friends, and she's
Mhm.
a licensed clinical social worker. Her name is Marley Reardon. Um, she specializes in perinatal mood disorder. I was only honest with her, and I was honest with kind of with Alyssa at Root and Rise.
Okay.
And but I told Alyssa in the way that it was like an intrusive thought, not something that was happening. Right. And so she
Mm.
was telling me like how intrusive thoughts can happen. So she was educating me on that. But I was super honest with Marley about it. And she told me what it was. And one to two out of 1,000 women can get it. Right.
Yeah.
So she was educating me on this and telling me about it. I already work with people who are living with schizophrenia. So I'm able to educate on those parts of like, this is your brain's way of surviving. It's trying to tell you something that another brain, a normal quote unquote person's brain, um, would maybe treat differently. So I already knew about the hallucination aspect, but like she started telling me more about how this can happen in perinatal mood disorders and things like that. So that's when I originally reached out for help. When I went to my next doctor's appointment, I was super honest on like the Edinburgh scale,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And they're like, you have postpartum depression. Would you like medication? Right? That's the first.
That is the thing. It's all that. Yep. I'm surprised they even looked at it because I mean, I filled mine out and I'm honest about this. I lied because I knew my choices. And when I gave it back to them, they didn't even look at it. I was like, so if I was honest, like, I don't like, did it matter?
Yeah. They really looked at mine and they knew my
Good.
history, and I was happy with that. Well, they knew my history with miscarriages because they were with me for a
Mhm.
couple of them.
Yeah.
And so they really looked at it, and really, I think I was honest about it because I just wanted to know, like, how far does this go?
Yeah.
Like, how bad is it? They're like, so I recommend medication, and I was super honest about that. I told her, you and I both know that it's a 50-50 shot if the first one you give me is going to work.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I already don't have energy to experiment with its efficacy, I guess, like
Hmm.
if it's going to work.
Hmm.
I was already so tired. I was already not receiving as much support as I would have liked. Um, but that was all that my support system was able to give me. Um, and I didn't have the energy or the time to try to make sure and figure out this whole medication thing. So those were the times that I reached out for help. So internally, I knew I needed something else. And so that's where I just happenstance, I was like, I don't know much about shamanism. I know about my own culture. I know what we do as like a family to reach out to our spiritual guides and stuff like that. But I was like, I don't connect with you well, but spirit guides, if you're out there, I need to find some sort of shaman. And so I was like, Google, help me. And so I was looking it up, and the first thing I found was this wonderful woman named Nicole, who also is a part of like the Latinx community, right? And is like she wasn't even an educator at that time. She was just offering these services. And when I emailed her, she was in the rainforest. I wasn't supposed to hear, for some reason, she also got a divine download, and she emailed me from the rainforest. She doesn't usually do that. She doesn't have service or anything. She just happened to be like, I'm gonna look at my emails,
Wow.
and found my email asking for
Wow.
assistance and if she could like educate me somehow on these spiritual practices because I needed something. Um, and she just emailed me and she was like, "It's so funny that this email came up, and I'm going to tell you right now, I've never taught anyone, but I am thinking about teaching people in like a month." And I was
Wow.
like, "Right?" And I was like, "I'm in it. You just tell me when." And I guess that was her divine download when she went on into the Amazon, was that she
Wow.
should start teaching. And so a month later, right, she sent out that email and I was like, yes, sign me up. And then I met all these incredible people who are also on like a healing journey and needing something extra that the Western world's medicine just could not provide. And that was incredible. And through that, I was able to understand spiritual modalities, but also be introduced to plant medicine.
Are you on the brink of parenthood, eagerly anticipating the arrival of your little one? Take a proactive step towards preparing for the whirlwind journey ahead by joining our waitlist for the Empowered First Year Postpartum Prep course. Designed with your needs in mind, this online 4-week program offers a comprehensive blend of education, skill building, and community support to guide you through the demanding postpartum season. Don't navigate this transformative time alone. Click the link in the show notes below to join our next cohort and embark on your journey to parenthood with confidence. Mm. Wow. Wow. I think it takes a lot of courage to, first of all, when you're having hallucinations, to say no to what the doctor's offering and to trust your instincts. Because that's not, I mean, I don't recommend that to everybody, but your instincts were speaking. And I recommend listening to your gut, your intuition. I recommend following what that's saying. And yours was saying, knowing this 50-50 chance, I don't think I can handle that. And the reality is a lot of those medications have extreme side effects. And so navigating those side effects oftentimes can be very difficult. Um, and I also want to say a lot of times when people do experience psychosis in the postpartum season and it gets to a point where like they reach out, they ask for help, people are worried about their safety or the safety of someone else, like that can lead to a psychiatric hospitalization. And here in Arizona, we don't have great so in the UK, they have mom and baby units. And they have these units where your family can come and visit as often as needed and support you with nursing. And there's people to help with taking care of the baby. And it supports from that like separation, which is an additional trauma when you're taken from your child. We are trying to, I think there's funding in place to try and build a mom and baby unit here in Arizona. Um, but to my knowledge, we don't have one. And so the next step would be if you're a danger to self or others, it would be hospitalization typically when it comes to postpartum psychosis because it can be so dangerous. There is a lot of um, mortality, maternal mortality rates related to mental health. I mean, if you look at maternal mortality rates in the state of Arizona, the majority of them are related to maternal mental health, and they're occurring in the year following a childbirth. And postpartum psychosis is a contributor of that. And so, I would recommend reaching out and asking for help if you're listening to this. But I also think it's so important to educate you on the alternative interventions that can complement or replace some of the options provided by a doctor. And so I love, Ayla, if you're comfortable with it, I would love for you to go into detail on what did these alternative interventions and approaches look like for you? Because they weren't, I can tell you this, they weren't a pill for an ill. It wasn't one and done. It wasn't, I'm going to take this and hope that it solves all my problems. It was you transforming your life and your belief system and your support system to be what it needed to support you through this season. And so the alternative interventions require commitment, right? It's not an easy way out. It's not a spiritual bypass. It is truly leaning into the shadows and the depths of it all with support. And so I'd love for you to explain what that looked like for you.
Before I get to that, because you brought up something super important, I am a super big advocate for psych meds, right? Because, just because I knew I didn't have the energy to try it doesn't mean like if I had the energy, I probably would have tried it. Um, but yeah, listening, I think that was so important. Listening to your intuition and knowing, like, just educating yourself on like options is incredibly important. Reaching out for help is extremely important. Um, so yeah, just because I knew medication wasn't going to work for me, it's definitely worked for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. Uh,
And I would say
so
it's one of the most common successful interventions to support postpartum psychosis.
mhm, mhm. Um, so honestly, I just started with Hape. So Nicole was telling me like, hey, I'm gonna introduce you guys to Hape. Nobody had to do it. This is what it can do, right? And so Hape is a legal substance. And I really love Four Visions Marketplace because it's ethically done, where they also, um, some of the proceeds also go back to the tribal communities in the Amazon. Um, and so I really like purchasing Hape from them because it's
Can you
ethically
explain what
sourced.
hape is? Because most people
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, so Hape is a tobacco. It's like a snuff. It's a very fine powder. And so there's tobacco and there's like some roots and some like tree essence in there. And sometimes it can be mixed with other things. It's dependent upon what you're looking for. So for example, I should have brought it with me. But so there, like if you want a heart opener, right, there is some hape that is also mixed in with cacao. And if you, I really like the one from the Kutakina tribe. I think that's how you say it. And it's mixed with eucalyptus. And that one can be extremely helpful for your sinuses and to breathe better. I really like that one, the one that's mixed with eucalyptus. So it can have some like other remedies in there and stuff like that. And so how you take it, right, is in a pipe called a gripe. Kind of looks like the shape of my fingers right now. And so for those of you who are listening, my it's like the shape of to my thumb to my index finger. So kind of like almost like a V or something. And so you take half of it into the pipe and then you blow through the pipe so it goes up your nose. And then you take the other half and you do it onto the other nostril. So that's how it's administered. And so the aspects of it are really powerful. It's a very grounding sensation. Those first 10 minutes, it's very grounding. It clears up all the sinuses. You want to breathe in and out through your mouth for a little bit. Try not to swallow any. Put some in like, so if you notice it going down your throat, you just put it into a tissue or something, and you'll definitely like maybe cry a little bit and have a little, snot running down your nose because it's very
It
clearing
opens
for
it
the
up. Yeah.
sinuses. Yeah. And so, but the impact was so powerful the first time I tried it. I was grounded. I was just sitting there in that plant medicine for the first 10 minutes, and I could feel my body again, and I could feel gravity. I was here. I was
Mm.
present. And it was like I was so like my vision felt like it got better. Um, I I feel like that's the best way I can describe it without like just this whole gravity feeling and this grounded, I am here in the earth and the earth has me,
Mm.
right? And I could feel Mother Earth like moving through me to help heal me. And so with that and noticing I was more present and I was more clear and I was more focused. I hadn't been so focused in such a long time with all these intrusive thoughts, with these hallucinations and the
Mm.
anxiety. I had never felt so focused in such a long time. And then I realized like, is this something I can purchase? It's something I can purchase legally, and I'm going to use it. And so it was suggested to me to use it in the mornings, um, like as much as I wanted to, like 3 times a week, every day, or uh, once a week or something.
Whatever felt
And I
right.
started, yeah. And so I started using it every morning. Uh, I think I used it every day for 30 days, as well as Sananga. So Sananga is administered through the eyes. It has the stinging sensation that is also full of like tree bark and tree essence and things and roots. And so Sananga is administered through the eyes like an eyedropper. That one has a stinging sensation, but that was also very beautiful and powerful. But I still resonated more with the hot base, so I stuck with that one. Um,
And what is Sananga?
it is another plant medicine that's legal. It's like again like tree bark and roots and stuff, and it's
Okay,
like
like all
you
different trees and roots, or is it a certain?
You
Or
know, that's a great
okay.
question. I don't I don't know. It seems different than Hoppe. And again, so Four Visions Marketplace has all the resources on that
Okay.
part.
Okay.
Um, and so but something else you can also purchase. And yeah, so doing it every day, not the Sananga, but every day for 30 days Hoppe, and that was extremely powerful. I didn't see the hallucinations anymore. they
Wow.
they weren't there anymore. I was more focused, I was more present and grounded. And these hallucinations are different than like the visions I received as part of my culture and like spirituality. These are so different. The others are more dangerous, what I would see in the hallucinations. And I didn't see them anymore. They were just
Wow. That's
gone.
so profound.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know how many people that happens to.
It makes me think like before we went down this route of pharmaceuticals and creating synthetic like drugs to support our mental wellness, what did we use? This. Like Plant medicine is what we use. We relied on the plants of our ancestors and our ancestors to know, our medicine men and medicine women to know what we needed to guide us through what we were experiencing because it's not postpartum psychosis. We call it that today, but it's not unique to just here and now in our world.
Hmm.
It didn't just develop when the DSM came about. We called it different things and we understood it as different things, but there was also different ways to treat that and heal that. And so hearing you describe this and the impact of just how profound it was implementing Hape into your daily intentional routine to support your healing. I'm I believe so deeply that that's rooted ancestrally in healing, like probably healing specifically this in the past, right? Like your shaman, is she the one who recommended this? Like,
Yes.
yeah. Wow. Wow. So cool. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many people that happens to, you
Yeah.
know, but something happened where a veil was lifted and all of a sudden I could see clearer. I could focus more. Like Pachamama, Mother Earth, she had me and held me and cleansed me and I was
Mm,
good. Like this, and that's the other thing that this medicine is also used for like cleansing rituals and ceremonies where like you are really cleansed, right? Like if you so choose to have that kind of experience. So that one's a very bodily experience of like
mhm,
expelling. But that's what you said, and I felt that was important. You said I sat with intention, very much
mhm,
so. I would meditate every morning with it. So before I used it, I would thank Mother Earth for blessing me with this medicine, and then I would put my prayer into it.
mm,
Please give me guidance on how to be a mom today. Or please give me patience or strength to get through this day was
mhm,
a huge one with those
mm,
first 30 days. Please give me guidance and please strengthen me for today. That
mm,
was a huge one.
mm,
Um, and then I would take it and then I would sit there for 10 minutes. So in all, this went for like 15, 20 minutes as meditation. Um, and oh my gosh, I don't know how I would have lived. Really, right? Like I really don't know how I would have survived because I wasn't given the support that I would have liked and I knew I couldn't get. And then turning to the spiritual and cultural side of like my ancestors,
mhm,
like that felt like my saving grace. My
mm,
ancestors came and provided, and Spirit came and provided, and Nicole and all of those people that were in that circle came and helped and
mm,
supported me, and the plant medicine supported me
mm.
in the way that I needed to be held. And I really, truly don't know how I would have survived without it.
I love how you described your intentionality and your connection to source. Like in every way the word can be utilized and interpreted. You truly, in your heart of hearts, in your all-knowing, your inner wise woman came through and she's your inner sage. She stands on the shoulders of your ancestors, right? She came through and guided you to your path forward. And you opened yourself intentionally in a vulnerable crisis state, which is a really hard state in place to like take a like I'm swinging a hard like turn over here into this lane. You did that and you trusted this inner knowing that you had, and you took the action steps to get there. That is just being someone who has gone through my own postpartum journey and experiencing like the anxiety and the OCD intrusive thoughts and the moments of depression. Like it is so hard to muster up that strength and to hold on to that resilience to go and try something new or to trust in something that feels like it's not necessarily tangible or like it's really hard to build that to find that resilience inside yourself and take those steps. So I'm just in awe of you and your strength.
Oh, thank you, Tina. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. So you mentioned also like you delve into learning this world from your teacher who's a shaman, and now you are a shaman. And I want to learn more about that.
So I am a shamanic practitioner. I will always be a student. I will probably never call myself a shaman.
Okay.
I, yeah, I
I
will
see your
always
like
be.
humble face glow over there. Yes.
I am always going to be a learner and a student because really, right, the shamans, Nicole doesn't like it when I call her a shaman either. The shamans are like spirit, right? The shamans are my elders, my ancestors teaching me and Pachamama and like
Mm,
these are the shamans. These
mm,
are the medicine warriors and so they're the shamans and I'm just that conduit if they'd let me sometimes.
so beautiful.
And so yeah, as a shamanic practitioner, I told Spirit, I promise that I will do good with this medicine, with these teachings, make me a conduit, uh, use me as you will in good work. So even when I call on my ancestors, right? Not all of our ancestors are good. So even when I call on my ancestors for guidance or support in shamanic practices, I say, I call upon my ancestors, those of the highest good and the highest love and the highest compassion to help me now. Um, that's what I say, right? To
Mm.
strengthen me because not all of them are great.
Yeah,
And
when I
that's
feel
what
like
it
I
is.
lean on my ancestors, I'm like healthy, kind, and wise. Like,
Yeah,
please
those
show
ones,
up for
please.
me right now.
Yeah, I don't need the other ones. Um, So just today, right, I we had to move this to like 30 minutes after because, I dedicated to making sure that when I use this work, when people ask me for this, especially family, when family asks me to help them with some sort of shamanic healing. So today, my family asked me if I could cleanse their home because there was an evil entity stuck in that home and it was making everyone sick.
Mm,
Um, and so I went into that home and I cleansed that space and we found where the entity was and we cleansed everyone, all the children, all the parents, everyone,
mm,
and cleansed that home and got rid of it. Um, but they wanted to pay me and I told them no, like seriously no, because I had promised spirit and our ancestors that the energy exchange would be something like you give me a pack of wipes or diapers for my kid or buy me food or something
mhm.
like grab me a burrito, like I it's something like that. It can't be money.
Mm,
And really I would say nothing. I would say I don't want anything, but there has to be some sort of like small energy exchange of some sorts
mhm,
in order to have like this profound impact. And so that's why I say like the pack of wipes will do me just fine, for
That's
this work.
beautiful.
So that's what I dedicated my time to is making sure that my community and my family are well taken care of.
That's so beautiful. And you've also, so you have the spiritual component, the energetic component, the plant medicine component, and you have this education and training around body work rooted in yoga, yogic philosophies, trauma release exercises. I am curious, how did you use this in your healing journey? And how would you use this in your healing journey?
Yeah, oh man. So I talked about this briefly. I am still in a very heavy grieving process about my birth and about like the pregnancy and
Yeah.
everything. And so for maybe 2 months, right, I was not very happy with my body, especially with everything else that was going on with postpartum, but I was not happy with my body. I was not proud of what had to take place in order for Elena to be born into this
Mm.
world. So I felt like I was punishing myself for a while. Um, but eventually, I came back to like this idea of like compassion for myself and my body and um, providing love and support to it. And I don't remember what the epiphany was or what had happened, but I decided I was going to get back into yoga and TRE at the exact same time. I put Elena down for bed. Oh my gosh, I remember what it was. I'm just not going to say it out loud, but I remember what it was now. Um, and so I'd put Elena to bed and I had dimmed the lights and I put candles out everywhere in my living room and I did TRE
Mm.
and I hadn't done it in such a long time
Can you
and I
describe what it
did
is for
it.
everybody?
Yeah, so TRE is trauma and tension release exercises. So I go through 7 exercises to fatigue my muscles, but specifically the psoas muscles, so that when the psoas muscles are activated in these positions that I get to on the ground, it will move through the fascia. And this fascia is like this white webbing throughout like our whole body and our muscles. And so that's where the vibration happens. So it starts in my psoas muscles and it vibrates to any place of trauma that it needs
Mm.
to. And it doesn't go in chronological order. Like the body knows what needs to be released
Mm-hmm.
first because it's so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And so it was like I was giving, gosh, I feel like I'm going to cry. It was like I was giving myself a big hug, and my body, in all of its infinite wisdom, was validating the birth that I never had. So when I had first started TRE, I had given birth to the children that I didn't get to birth. And so I went through the contractions and that whole experience of giving birth, probably not to the emphasis of like actually giving birth, but all those
Yes.
body movements.
Yes.
And it was obvious. And then in this same moment, it was the same thing. It was trying to take me through the motions and validate a birth that I didn't get to have.
Mm.
And so my body validated and held me in that space. And I was so thankful. Like my body knew, and my brain was just like, I'm not pleased with you right now. I'm not connected with you right now.
Mm.
And it was beautiful and profound. And then after I went into some yoga movement and just movement in general. And I think ever since then, that was probably, yeah, 2 months after she was born, like I just continued with movement and that looked like yoga or that looked like TRE. That even looks it majority of the time it looks like dancing now. Um, but when after that one session, because Elena had also was born into trauma,
Mm.
I put her on my chest while I did TRE so that she could also feel the vibrating effects of that.
That is so cool.
And it was awesome because this little girl who was awake during this time all of a sudden was like, ah,
Oh,
and she just fell asleep while I was tremoring. I was still tremoring and keeping that up, but she just fell asleep
that's
and she was so
amazing.
calm. Yeah.
Gosh. So I can relate to the TRE exercises when I was in my journey of recovery. I think Emery had to have been 2, my son. And I went to a event that was offered by a local school, and they like allow you to experience some of their interventions that their students are learning, and it's a way for their students to practice and for the public to like be introduced to alternative ways to support healing. And this school offers so many beautiful ways of healing. But the thing that caught my eye was a Reiki session, and I'm now Reiki certified. This was like the introduction to that. And I had this Reiki practitioner, she was a student who was also trained in TRE, and I had a 15-minute experience. 15 minutes is all it took. 15-minute experience with her providing Reiki, but she also asked if she had permission to practice TRE on me. And she explained like your body goes into these different positions and tremors, and that this is like allowing that pent-up energy and trauma to actually move through your body. And she related it to animals in the wild or just animals in general, where you can see even with like a dog, you can see their top, like their coat, their top layer of skin, like shiver and tremor and separate from the bottom one when they're like shaking it off, or they just had a big moment, like their hair stands up and then comes down, and then their like skin goes like it vibrates through, and they get to do that. But our body doesn't like automatically separate and do that. And so it holds on to it, and you have to create opportunities, right? And usually I think this would be implemented in tribal ways, that there's dancing and movement that naturally gets to be included in helping move this through your body. But in our society, that's really not something that's typically a part of what we do in a day-to-day life. And so she did this, and my hips, my groin, my hips were just like vibrating out of control. And it had this release and this effect that like made tears come down my face. Like, whoa, what is this? And they weren't tears of pain. They were just like emotion, like coming out of me. And I was very quiet. I hadn't spoken about my experiences postpartum. I didn't tell anybody about my experiences postpartum as I went through it. And afterwards, she gave me a hug and she's like, I just want to let you know it's okay to not be okay. And I walked out of there. My best friend was with me, and I gave her a hug and I just like whooshed out, like cried. And it was such a profound experience for me. And it was 15 minutes, like 15 minutes. And that was my start of realizing like there's something more for me here to support my healing in this physical realm. And I started different types of interventions, none of them consciously to heal my postpartum journey. I stumbled across them, and that included yoga. And Kundalini yoga was huge for me. Huge for me. Um, it was Reiki, it was massage, it was breath work, like all of these things. These were the things that moved the needle in my healing far more than anything I could imagine. And I wasn't intentionally doing them for me to heal when I tried them. Like it was just like, oh, I'll try this, right? Or, oh, this sounds interesting. Like following those little pings and those little, one of my mentors, Julie Santiago, she calls them sparkly breadcrumbs on your trail. And so as I hear you talk about like your intentionality with it, I think it's so beautiful you had these skills, but I also can like feel it in my bones, the power of what you're describing.
Thank you. I think it's really interesting that we went into these, I don't know if it's like a trauma response, call it what you want, but like we went into these healing modalities, at least I did, to learn more about myself, right?
Mm,
And then I realized I can't be the only one who's also
mhm,
experienced this. And so I feel like I got educated specifically on the things that spoke to me, and I
mhm.
wanted to show others like, hey, here are these things too. Maybe this will
Yeah.
resonate with you. You
Mhm.
know? And isn't it interesting, and it's probably a different topic for another day, that insurance is like yoga is not something that's going to heal you, so we're not going to pay for it as part of your therapeutic practice.
It's so hard. But now I will say I am learning ways to integrate complementary and alternative integrative interventions into my psychotherapy sessions so that they are all encompassed into one. And there's ways that we are learning thanks to the powerful research that has been done that is allowing us to couple these with evidence-based practices and modalities and move that needle. There's not many practitioners that feel confident in doing that because it's still, I feel like, very new. We're not trained in this in school. Like you and I went to school for the same thing. This isn't discussed. This isn't a part of it.
Mhm.
Also, perinatal mental health is not discussed at all. Not even a whisper mention word about it. Nothing. And
Nope.
so I had to run into my own experiences personally already as a therapist, feel like, oh, what is this and why is this here? What the heck is happening after I got out of the daze of it and I could realize what I was going through. But no, but there was no training. You have to seek your own training around this.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a thing until, like I said, like I knew
Mhm.
Marley was in, like that was something she specialized in and something she has for years. I don't even know how many years, but I don't remember it ever being talked about in school or anywhere, you
Mm-mm.
know? And
Yeah.
it sucks to say that people would actually have to experience it in order to know what it is all of a sudden.
Yeah. I agree. And I think a lot of us, because there's the lack of education, there's the lack of awareness around it, which I'm really grateful. Like organizations like Postpartum Support International, Fourth Trimester of Arizona,
Yes.
they're out here doing good work to raise awareness around it. Um, but that wasn't natural for me to run into any of that. And if you are listening to this and you do want to find a provider that is actually trained in perinatal mental health, Postpartum Support International has a directory, and you can go onto that directory and enter in your zip code where you are, and it will show you all of the practitioners that are specifically trained in supporting the unique mental health conditions that arise during pregnancy, birth, and the postpartum season. And so you can go on there and find them. I am a practitioner for therapy here in Arizona. It sounds like Marley is an amazing practitioner here in Arizona too. I know many other beautiful ones. So if anyone is listening and they're in Arizona and they need help finding one, reach out. I will help get you connected to who you need. Um, but I'm grateful that the movement is starting. And it's because of people who are feeling safe and brave to be real and raw about it. People like you, my dear, sharing your story,
Aw.
even when it felt like you can look back and see a time where you were ashamed of it and you couldn't speak these words out loud. And now here you are doing this on a podcast for the whole world to hear and to know they're not alone and to relate to and to be able to understand the warning signs and know what to do and what alternatives are available. That is powerful. Thank
Mm,
you.
thank you. Thanks for saying
Yeah.
that. It's interesting to look back on.
Mm, right. Mm. A couple tidbits of information around postpartum psychosis that I'd love to share. And Ayla, you chime in and share anything else that you want to add. Just for education for our listeners, there are risk factors that make you more predisposed or more at risk for experiencing perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. Postpartum psychosis is a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, and those risk factors do include struggles with fertility, struggles with loss, grief, trauma, high incidences of trauma in your childhood, things that we call adverse childhood experiences contribute to that. Endocrine disorders can contribute to increasing your risk. Prior mental health struggles. Those who have been diagnosed with bipolar have higher risks of experiencing postpartum psychosis. If you have any history of psychosis, you're more at risk. And then if you do experience it in pregnancy, you are more likely or in pregnancy or postpartum, you're more likely to experience it again. And so having your support system built and your team built around supporting you ahead of time to prepare and reduce risk factors and have what you need so you can manage through it if it does happen again. Also, it doesn't always happen directly after birth. I just listened to a mom that I know and love dearly share her story with postpartum psychosis. She has four living children, and she has, I believe, two babies in heaven. And um, she experienced postpartum psychosis twice, and both times it happened at the 4 month mark. And so this can really show up at different stages throughout the postpartum journey. A lot of times people will say that they begin experiencing postpartum perinatal mood and anxiety disorders start around 3 or 4 months, and some people really ramp up around 7 or 8 months. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe the maternal mortality rates indicate that 7 and 8 month mark is really high risk. Often, I believe that's because you've dealt with it for so long and you're exhausted and you're at your wits' end. But these are things to know and be aware of. And just because you have any of these risk factors doesn't mean that you will experience this, but it does mean that you should start in pregnancy or as soon as you're listening to this, building your protective factors. And just because you haven't experienced this and maybe you're a month or two out from having a baby doesn't mean that you're in the free and clear. It does mean you should continue building your protective factors. And so, if you want to learn more about protective factors, I have another episode in the podcast all about things that you can actually tactfully do in your life to strengthen what you need in order to reduce your risk and reduce your risk and reduce intensity. Um, if you do struggle with them. And so I ask you to lean on those. I also have a printout on building protective factors, preparing for this season. I have a journal that you can fill out to track how you're doing with building your protective factors and how you're feeling, and then reflect each week and create a plan to adjust if you need to. So I have a lot of free resources for you guys to navigate this if you're experiencing it. And then Ayla, would you add anything to what I said?
First of all, I would like to have another child, even though I'm terrified to. And so I've been already thinking of what am I going to do this next time around. So I've been building that list. Didn't know you had one. So now I'm going to go and look up that list to add it to my list. That's the first thing. Um, and second of all, um, the mom support groups really helped
Mm,
like so much. Like fourth trimester, going to the Root and Rises ones were also really helpful. Because I got to meet other people who had given birth that were like, so this is what I'm going through. What are you going through?
mhm,
And it was without judgment. I think that was
mm,
the biggest thing is I received no judgment, although I wasn't 100% honest with these things and made it off to be intrusive thoughts. I I felt like I had built a good community, and it was really nice to be able to have Elena play with other children and not like she was born into trauma and then having to see mom or witness, right? Mom going through this too and taking care of her as much as I could. Um, like that was, I know that she has high cortisol levels. I
mm,
know that this
mm,
impacted her development. I see it and I see how she interacts and the that's the most important thing. The only thing I can do is try to develop coping skills for the way that her brain is reacting right now. That is the only thing that's within my control. I did the best that I could at the time that I had, just like any mother
yes.
did the
Yes.
best that they
Mm,
could at the time that they had with the knowledge that they had at the time.
yes.
And now I'm just trying to work with her brain now because she has a higher level of cortisol because she's developmentally a little different than other children because she was born into trauma. I'm just
Mm,
trying to find the ways that interact with that 2-year-old brain and that trauma brain at the same time. And that
mm,
is the only thing that's within my control. And she is doing great, and her and I are doing great because I have that knowledge and awareness. Um, but I do remind myself like what is within my control and what's outside of my control right now.
mm. So beautiful. And the thread of everything that you just said is connection, nurturing community connection. For you
Mhm.
and your daughter, it's that nourishing, nurturing connection, the bond that creates that healing and that resilience. And then also for you in that season of life, when you mentioned the mom group supporting you, that's the biggest protective factor we can have is it's aligned community support that feels aligned and right for you, not support of people that you feel like you just have to have or they annoy you but you're welcoming them in because they want to be a part of it, like something that feels aligned and right, people that can show up for you in the real, in the raw, and be what you need them to be in that season of life. And fourth trimester has that. That's where I met Ayla. Beautiful opportunity. These free villages that we host all over the state of Arizona and online. Postpartum Support International offers free support groups as well. A lot of them are on the phone or online, and they have support groups that specialize in specific areas. And so you can look up exactly what you're struggling with, join a support group led by a facilitator who is very educated and knowledgeable on it and surrounded with other people who get it so you can speak candidly. Um, and then by the time this is airing, I will have a free support group up I'm going to be offering it for about 6 weeks. Come and go as you please on Zoom for anyone in the world to have a space to connect and be heard and build their community and their tribe. There's so many ways that we can build this in our world. And a lot of the ways, if you don't have it naturally woven into your support system, there's ways that you can intentionally create it where you don't have to pay extra for it. There are countless support groups out there that are free that you can connect to. And if you want to pay for something and look for a deeper level of support, there's a lot of options out there as well. I know I have the Empowered Mamas Club, which is exactly that. We heal together, we get deep, we get real and raw, and we grow together. And everybody in that group stays in that group because it just means that much. So there's so many options out there. And Ayla, I love that you highlighted that. I think that's the most profound, and evidence shows it's the most profound impact to support our mental health and well-being.
And that's what it was originally, right? Ancestrally, that's what we had originally, were these villages and this support.
Yes, 100%. Yes. Okay, so if people want to find you, if they want to be able to work with you or in any capacity as a therapist or a shamanic practitioner, how do they find you?
Yeah. So you can find me on Psychology Today, so Ayla Perez. And you can also email me at raha, RAHA, wellness1 at gmail.com. So if you're looking for a therapist, I do take insurance. You can email me that way and we can connect. In terms of shamanic practices, if I only have one social media, and I'm very grateful for that one, I will not get any more. And you can find me on Instagram at Viajes Knickknacks. So it's VIAJES, and then underscore knickknacks, KNICKKNACK.
Beautiful. I will put all of that in the show notes so that people can just like click on the hyperlink and it will take them there.
Nice.
Ah, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for bearing your heart and soul and connecting to wounds and also ways that you've healed. I appreciate your wisdom. I appreciate your courage and your vulnerability. And thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us today. It has been an honor to share this space with you today on the Empower to Heal podcast, where we illuminate the strength you have within yourself to heal. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.